All right. The way I look at this kind of scenario is to see who's on my strategic partner team and see which one of us could kick off the assistance to that owner. In this specific scenario, ideally they would start out with a business coach who could try to align, what specific activities they're doing. And this is the kind of thing we talked about at the North Jersey one with Chris Lipper. Like he would be like the person to kick it off, kind of ask the open-ended questions as to what the goals are for that business, what kind of activities the owner is actually performing, and are those activities leading to the goal, and what can he do or she do to potentially outsource those activities that are not helping him work on the business as opposed to work in the business. Where I would come in, as let's say that's what was Chris's client, he'd reach out to me and say, Drew, I'm working with this client. He is busy as heck. His revenue is booming. He can't get out of his own way because he's really involved in the practice. And I've isolated areas where I know his company should be working on, but he shouldn't be the one to do it. And can you have a call with him and do a discovery call to find out how you can help? So I would make that call, and I would be speaking with him about what expenses he pays out. So really a list of all the invoices that he actually pays directly to a vendor. I'd establish which ones I can help him on, which are 8 different cost categories. Depending on which ones they are, I'd learn about the process. And all I would do is, when you work with us, we would actually take that role away from them, and we'd be behind the scenes, and whoever he has or she has allotted for that actual activity can now be alleviated from that and move over to whatever they do. So let's say this owner is the one who looks at the invoices and the line items and calls the vendors and says, I think this is a missed bill, or I think I'm paying too much. We would do all that for them and take that off their plate. So not only can we reduce some expenses, would even increase his profit more, we could take time back and save that owner time to work on other parts of his or her job. And then additionally, that money that's saved, that's in the budget, he or she could work on to put towards his business that's also going to improve some operations. So it's really the time we'll give back, and the security and the peace of mind that somebody's watching their back to make sure they're not overpaying on their expenses. Excellent. And I think, on that, I mean, then basically I'd look to our team, and Paul might be the next person to come in. If Chris says, what, this guy's website is not really drawing attention and converting, he's working on it himself, and I'd probably recommend Paul and bring him in.
Yeah. And the tee up, I mean, it just happens that you're a guest this week. I think Ivanka has a perfect scenario that you kind of see this kind of cases. Can you give a very brief summary of what you would do for a customer in this situation?
So in my experience, I mean, this is basically what our business is founded on these principles to help people who are in this kind of situations. Now, the most difficult thing when outsourcing is for clients to develop trust into their into the other company that they're outsourcing to. And our approach is to the number one thing is to always start small, as to to allow the other company to see in what way that this would really help them and reduce the stress on the boss and on everybody there in their company. And especially with the situation that we had in the past 2 years, I would say, with the COVID, and everybody seeing that they have to trust their employees even though they're not right in front of their eyes all the time. I think this is what we do as well. And the only difference is that it's even better that it's going to be supervised. Now, I think a lot of bosses and a lot of people are in those kind of situations where they can hardly even trust their own employees who are in their own office, and that's why they take on this kind of a stressful situation and try to do everything themselves. So I think every time you see yourself in a situation like this, I think you should always try to see the easy way out, but try not to lose the quality of your business. So building trust with somebody and finding the right people that can do the job for you, I think, is the best option. And of course, it will allow you to save money and save your time and give you more free time, which in my opinion is even more precious than money.
Yeah, and I know from our perspective, as an accountant, I'm always looking at these kind of things and asking, how can they optimize and you're making money, but you're killing yourself in the process. What can you do to make things simpler and to use automation? And that's where I think Paul can talk a little bit about not just taking a website, but not just having it as a feed, but to have it actually kick off automation and start some things along those lines. Paul, you want to?
Yeah, sure. A lot of times there's things that you can do to, well, just automate the process so that you kick one thing off and then it just continues on down the line, taking care of some of those things. So automation is probably a great way to start out with some of those things. One of the things, though, that I'm surprised nobody's really mentioned yet is actually looking at the individual, him or herself, and saying, why are you such a control freak? Right? So, Ivancho, you mentioned the boss who's, the companies need that extra trust. Well, why don't you trust the employees that you hired? Or, as Drew mentioned, people are doing all these things with their expenses. They're monitoring it. While that's good, why is that person, the client that we're talking about, the one who feels he or she has to be doing it, right? A lot of times in this type of situation, people just don't want to let go because it's either a trust issue or maybe they don't know how to delegate, right? Maybe they've burned in the past and they thought delegation means assign something to somebody and kind of think, okay, it's going to get done the right way. Delegation is something that really is a skill that people need to practice and work at and know how to follow up and then give feedback when it's not the way he or she wanted. One of the benefits I think of that is delegating it to somebody and finding out that, their way was actually a better way, right? So, and this also, I'm going to tie this back into the automation. Somebody who knows about automation, when you give them the task to do something, they can automate it. So not only is we'll call it the boss freed up, but then the employee or the subcontractor or whoever's doing the work, they're freed up and the task is now on autopilot. So.
I got a quick, easy way, well, not easy, but a way that you can kind of figure out where your productive tasks are. I don't know if anybody ever heard of the Pareto Principle, the 80-20 rule. It's a rule that basically says that 20% of the output comes from, or 80% of the output comes from 20% of the input. So usually 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your employees, 80% of your production comes from 20% of your employees. It even applies to sports, like 20% of the sports people's figures produce 80% of the scoring. So if you can figure out what is contributing to the 80%, then you can focus on the 20% of your clients or referrers. Like 20% of your clients may be referring you 80% of your business. So focus on that 20%. And you might find that the people who are in the 80% that aren't producing anything, you might be able to just cut them away and focus all of your efforts where your 20% needs to be.
Now, Lance, that's a perfect lead in, because let's think about it. When you suggest something like that, that business owner who we're talking about right now thinks he or she has to do it themselves. And that's what we're trying to help them. So we've just established a gap for our group right here, that we need a business coach or a business advisor on this team, because that would be the first individual we would refer to this company owner, because we would hope that the business owner would uncover that 80%, 20% thing and kind of help streamline operations, then punt it to Paul to build up that website, who would then potentially punt it to me, or simultaneously Paul and me. And then we work around something that, Ivanko then steps in, or the sequence of who goes in when is going to help that owner. And it has to start with that initial person who's going to kind of streamline stuff.
Go ahead, Rochelle.
Yeah, I think too, when all of this stuff when all the business side of things are taken care of, Paul mentioned looking at the individual. And I think that's really important, getting back to the individual. If they've been stressed and overworked for a very long time, their health and wellness is very poor. So when things start to get in line with their business and they have things, they do have some more time freed up, I think that's when myself, Tracy, and Lisa could really come into play and really work on getting their health and wellness back in order. And honestly, Tracy could probably even help in, Paul, you were saying the why. Why are they afraid of delegating? Why are they, why do they think they have to do everything? And that's one of the things I think Tracy could work on with them too, is really kind of the mental health side of things. Obviously, Lisa would come in with, some of the wellness and health. And what I do is really a combination of looking at the body and the mind and putting it all together. So I think when they're finally freed up and have some more time and the business is running a little bit better, really looking at the individual and their health and wellness would be very important.
There's another facet of this that goes along with what you just said, Rochelle. That's the person, and this is probably maybe outside of our wheelhouse, and it's a total change in direction, but the person who, whether they're a control freak or not, they don't understand the value of relaxation. They're just like driven. And it's that person who, I'll take a vacation, next year. I can't do it this year. I'll take, and it's that old, I forget who the songwriter was, but Cat in the Cradle. Where all of a sudden life has passed you by, and you missed out on the upbringing of your children and all that. So there's that whole aspect of it too, which is a health. I view as you said, it's a health and wellness aspect to it. So getting the person to realize that family and relaxation are just as important as controlling your employees is a big part of it in many cases.
Yeah, and I completely agree. And you can't wait, because you will burn yourself out. And if something happens to you, who is running the business day to day? And I do think that people do have 5 to 10 minutes a day at a minimum to pay attention to their health.
So we can get them to understand how to delegate and understand how to not be a control freak. But first, we got to make them understand. Again, to a large percentage of people, you have to make them understand the importance of delegating and not being a control freak. Just send them to one of Jake's parties.
Oh, I'll loosen them right up. Don't worry.
Karaoke cures all.
Yeah. I was going to say, though, that it does kind of tie into freeing up, that backspace in your mind when you're worrying about things that maybe haven't even happened. That can really take a stressor and distract you from everything else. So where I would come in with the Legal Shield and ID Shield is that you have these people working for you on the back end where you're protected. So you're not like, oh, I have to worry about if my employee opens a weird email, or, oh, I have to worry about, if my client, trips when they walk in the building and they decide to sue me, or I have to worry about all these things. Now that's kind of pushed off, again, delegated to somebody else, where it's also something that's affordable. They're not worried about, oh yeah, now I have a lawyer, but no, I'm paying an arm and a leg for it. They feel comfortable, and that they have this whole support system around them. So, anyone that can fill in gaps in their brain space can free them up to actually focus on the business itself and not the what ifs of what could happen, on a day-to-day basis.
Great job. Great job. No, I think that really got a chance to address everything. Did you have anything, Anthony, you wanted to add? I think everyone else got a chance to speak.
No, I think, I'll just want to reiterate what everyone said, having personal time and work balance is really, really one of the most important parts, of owning a business.
Yeah, to figure that. Tracy, did you have anything?
Well, I just really appreciate just the diverse application of the topic at hand. It just is very holistic how seemingly very disparate professions are able to weigh in with some really helpful angles on the same topic. And, I think being an entrepreneur has some very unique blessings and challenges to it. And it just serves a person really well if they could at least be part of a group like this. Maybe they can't afford to hire all of the individual services, but at least to be part of a group like this to help create a higher sense of awareness to your overall well-being and how that translates into your business. It's a very helpful conversation.